All right, well, thank you everybody for listening to another episode of Simply Finance with Shane White. I am pumped today to have Nicole Frankel on the podcast, the CEO and founder of Yum Actually. Nicole, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Do you want to give the listeners just a little background into you and Yum Actually and just get everyone up to speed?
Sure, absolutely. So again, hi everybody, Nicole Frankel. I am based in New York City. I have 3 young kids. I have a 7-year-old daughter and 3-year-old twin boys. So never a dull moment in my life, really interesting time in my life to start a business. But I actually I was inspired by something that happened with my 7-year-old daughter, and that's what prompted me to start Yum Actually. So as I mentioned, she's 7 years old, and a couple of years ago, when she was about 4 years old, she went through that phase where she just refused to pick up a fruit or a vegetable. She absolutely refused. I tried everything and could not get her to eat fruits and vegetables to save my life when she was about 4 years old. So I resorted to buying a homemade ice cream maker.
Oh, wow.
And buying a whole bunch of fruits and veggies and mashing them up and turning them into something I knew she would not be able to refuse. No 4-year-old is going to refuse ice cream, and certainly she would not turn down an ice cream. So I thought, I mashed up this sweet potato. That was the first flavor I made. I put a larger amount of sweet potato than you will find of just a flavored ice cream, and had this orangey sweet potato smelling ice cream that I put in front of her. She right away knew it was something healthy. She knew that it looked unusual. She knew that it wasn't her typical vanilla ice cream. So she did protest at first about taking a bite of it. Then she took a couple of bites. She looked up and she said, "Oh, it's Yum Actually." And so
that's funny. So that's where the name comes from.
That's where the name comes from. Yep, directly from her mouth. And so I thought to myself, she ate the whole thing, and I got into this routine of making different fruit and veggie flavored ice creams throughout the weeks to get her to up her intake of fruits and veggies, and it was, I was successful in doing so. I also thought it was important to not turn her into a maniac, so not to add too much sugar to it. There's a lot of sugar, y'all know, in most ice creams, and it was important for me to add as little as possible. So I spoke to a bunch of friends that had the same problem, still have the same problem in some cases. Many different moms and dads go through challenges getting their kids to eat fruits and veggies. And so I figured, I'm really solving a problem and filling a gap in the marketplace by creating this better for you ice cream for kids that uses a more significant or more substantial portion of fruits and veggies in it. Right. And so that's kind of the story of the origin of Yum Actually.
Oh, that's really cool. So how did you, I guess the first question I had when you were going through that story is, how did you know, I mean, I guess I've never just made ice cream. So how did you know you could just mash up vegetables and make it into an ice cream type consistency? Did you have to research that online, or did you just start playing with it, or how did you go through that?
Whole bunch of trial and error to begin. Then I also brought, and I probably have it somewhere in my room. I'm looking around my room right now. I have a scientific ice cream book. It's about 300 pages. That book was like the Bible to me when I was developing these formulas. I mean, I knew nothing about ice cream, and ice cream, as a lot of people know, is an actual science. There are actual ice cream courses you can take in college because it is scientific. You need to have the right amount of solids, of fats, of air, viscosity. There's so much that goes into creating an ice cream. And so when you're developing a formula that's a little bit out of the box, like Yum Actually is, a fruit or a vegetable is the first ingredient. It's the main ingredient in our ice cream, and it is also lower in sugar, which means lower solids. It did take it did take several months, and that was trial and error in the kitchen. I had my twin boys were babies at the time, so they would be strapped onto me, and I would just be doing batch after batch after batch until I couldn't stand the sight of mangoes and bananas. And then I also had this ice cream book that next to me at all times. I mean, I slept next to it for probably an entire year.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because it sounds like you, as soon as you you had your daughter have like that positive reaction to it, was that when it was like the light bulb go off that like I should turn this into a bit, like it seems like a big stretch to go from that, like you fix that problem to then like, oh, I want to turn this into a business.
Yeah, and I mean, I should say I have worked at my career leading up to Yum actually was never in CPG.
Oh, really?
Um, However, I do have experience working at various different startups, usually within financial technology. So that's kind of
Oh,
my
okay.
back. I have a bit of that
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
startup background and mindset. And at the time, I was not working. I had just had the twins, and so I love working. I love. I mean, I love it. And I love working at smaller companies. I love having, being an entrepreneur. And so, yeah, and I love, kind of working with products that that are solving problems. And so
Got it.
yeah, the light bulb went off and I just thought there's nothing else like this on the market. There are so many better for you ice creams out there that are targeting adults, and they have some ingredients that are a little bit, unsavory in my opinion, that kids can't really consume. And I thought to myself, there is nothing else out there that is kind of a better for you frozen dessert for kids that, moms and dads and caretakers can feel empowered about giving to their kids.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Do you, I mean, I know you're early on in this journey, but I always love asking founders this is just, why do you think that hasn't existed before? Or why do you think no large ice cream manufacturer has like wanted to get into that? Have you found any of those answers yet in your early days of selling in?
I really have. I mean, ice cream is really tricky to work with. I
Yeah.
often find myself saying, why didn't I just come up with the next best granola bar or the next best breakfast cereal? Why didn't I come up with some sort of a dry, temperature stable food product? So ice cream in itself is a very difficult product to bring to market, both from formulation, both in terms of formulating it, and then also logistics. It is a logistical nightmare working with an ice cream product. And so that could have to do with it. Maybe there was no one else that had this instance where they needed to solve a problem for their child.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, and then the other question I had was, it seems like you definitely have found like a niche. And I apologize. My cat has never bugged me in all the episodes I've done. I don't know if you can hear her or not, but she's trying to
Not at all.
meow. She's meowing, wanting to come in the room.
Oh
Um,
no. If my background isn't distracting you, then the cat's definitely not distracting
it's
me.
so funny. I've done so many episodes and she's never once wanted to come in.
No,
Um,
maybe
but
she's hearing about the ice cream. She's
I
like,
was
I
gonna
want.
say she wants it's something different. Apparently, she's into this one. It's so funny. Um, but I was wondering, you definitely have like a niche as far as like better for you ice cream for kids. Is there a reason you decided to go just directly down that path versus like just general like marketing towards all ages? Was there a decision made at some point for that?
It's funny you ask that. I actually one of the first flavors I worked with was avocado,
Yeah.
and I was in all sorts of different ice cream flavors from avocado. And when I say all different ice cream flavors, they were lemon curd avocado ice cream, strawberry balsamic avocado ice cream. All tasted amazing, very much targeting an older demographic too.
Okay.
And it's funny, I was working on avocado ice cream for several months along with these other flavors, but I really was working on some more sophisticated flavors that weren't necessarily kid friendly.
Okay.
And I literally, in the middle of the night, something was bothering me about this avocado ice cream idea, and I didn't know. I don't know. I couldn't put my finger on it. I literally woke up in the middle of the night, right in the middle of all of this formula development and knee deep in avocado puree. And I woke up and I said, I am not solving a problem with this product. You need to solve, in my opinion, if you're going to start a business, if you're going to launch a food product, you have to solve a problem. I was not solving any sort of problem with the avocado ice cream.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I went back to basics. I went back to my original story, which was, kind of getting my kid to eat more fruits and veggies and solving that problem. And I said, I'm going back to basics. I'm going back to the original story. And I'm just going to solely focus on this being a better for you kids product. Plus, less crowd, less competition. There's so many better for you ice creams that cater to the adult demographic. So
Got
that
it. Yeah, it makes sense.
I said I'm going with this demographic. I have 3 kids myself. I can, that is my story.
Yeah,
So
no, it totally makes sense. The other question I was just thinking of, I love asking people this, but it's funny because it's like you're the first founder I've heard of that. You kind of already said your answer was like, do you remember the very first batch of your product you ever made? Like, do you remember what that was like? But I'm assuming is that the one you maybe put in front of your daughter? If not,
that
do you
was
remember the very first batch you made?
that was one of the that was one of the that was one of the first ones. That wasn't the very first one I made. The very first one must have been unremarkable because I don't remember it. I do
Okay.
remember my first batch I made in a co-packing facility, which was an
Oh, I
absolute
bet.
disaster. And
I feel like they
so
always are, though. I feel like
I
that's kind
remember
of part of the course. Especially with ice cream, I'm sure that's just difficult to like get a
disaster.
co-packer to kind of get together. I can only imagine.
Yeah, no, we had lost ingredients, missed ingredients. We had broken equipment. We had my ice cream actually break some equipment there. Luckily, no longer doing this. We had everything that could possibly go wrong in a first production run went wrong for me in that first one.
Oh wow, that's tough. Do
Yeah.
you remember when you like sat down with either like friends, family, and like had the discussion where you were like, I'm gonna go forward with this and like actually start a business and start taking the steps? Do you remember that?
Um, I spoke with my husband about it. He was fully supportive. I don't think he completely believed that I was going full steam with it at the time because I had just had the twin boys.
Right.
So I certainly remember with him. I remember talking to my parents who were fully supportive. My brothers and sisters. I'm one of 5 kids, so I do
Oh
remember
wow.
talking very early on about this, and they all thought it was a brilliant idea. I was a little bit more guarded when it came to talking to friends about it or former colleagues about it. I was pretty guarded for various reasons. I'd always heard all sorts of stories about people taking your idea and taking your formula. I was
Oh
a
yeah.
little bit worried about that in the beginning. And then I also just, I'm kind of a superstitious person to begin with. So I wanted to kind of keep it kind of close to the chest at the time.
Got it. Yeah. Kind of like prove it out first and then let people
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes
yeah.
sense. That makes sense. I know you guys have like you said before we started recording, you've only been really on shelf for not even a year yet. Um,
Yeah.
how has that gone? Like, what was your first points of distribution? How has like distribution grown? Obviously, with COVID, I'm sure it's been like we talked a little bit before, but I'm sure it's been a little difficult. I'm sure or I'd be curious to know actually, because some brands are doing better than others during COVID. So, would you mind giving everyone a little bit of background into that?
Yeah, not a problem. So I'm based right in New York City, right in Manhattan, and so there are a lot of stores that I tend to shop. I tend to shop there frequently, and I know the owners and the managers well. So last fall, I actually went to them with this, and I said, "Hey, what do you think about this?
Oh
Do you
wow.
do you think this is a good idea? And most importantly, how do you think it tastes?" Feedback was really good, and I got onto some shelves. Last fall I got onto some shelves. Some of them were free fills, or some of them were nice intro deals that I put in place. But I was able to get there on the shelf, and I was able to demo at the time. Demoing is obviously
Right.
it's not happening so much anymore, but I was able to get in front of customers and speak to them about what they liked, what they didn't like, what they thought about packaging, what they thought about this and that. And that was very, very valuable. So I did that for a few months before changing packaging, changing co-packers, tweaking formulas a little bit based on all this feedback. And I'm happy to say that those stores that I was in last fall, I'm still in them all. They've continued to reorder. They're not getting free product anymore. And I went out, when I had a product ready to go to market, I went out, March of last year and just knocked on doors. This was right before COVID. I was visiting 10 stores a day with samples and talking to them about the gap that we were filling in the market, and just saying to them, do you have any healthy kids ice cream products on your shelf? The answer is always no. you are a local brand and you need to have this ice cream in your store. And buyers, retailers, very, very receptive to the fact that we do have this unique, delicious tasting product. And so that was, getting on the shelf it's never been a challenge. Staying on the shelf, very successful with that too.
Awesome.
Obviously that is, maintaining your shelf, the ideal shelf placement for your product can be challenging when you're up against some of the larger brands like popsicles.
Yeah, right.
But overall doing really well there, and still doing self-distribution because we are still only in stores in New York City, and we're in 65 stores now in Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn. I'm still distributing myself. I find that, I have a warehouse in Brooklyn that I use to store the product. And I find that the stores that I'm in tend to not be, not be very far from that. So still self-distributing,
Wow.
taking it myself. It's a lot of work, but as I always say, there's a little bit of a method to the madness. I like to be able to go in. I like to be able to put it on the shelf myself, which sometimes they let me, sometimes they don't, but I like to be able to choose the shelf space I want, put it there myself, put my little sticker up like you can see right there. Not that one right there, but the
Yeah,
super
the other one. Oh, I see it. Yeah, I didn't see that at first. Okay.
I like to be able to have that control. I think it's really important when you are establishing a new brand to be on the field and be in your backyard as much as possible to do these types of things. Learn the industry, learn about the competitors, learn about the different price points, merchandise it yourself, all of that. And so still distributing myself, but it's getting to be a bit much.
Yeah, I
And
bet.
so plan on working with a distributor early next year.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's interesting, especially if you're, someone like you in New York City. It seems like New York City's just still such the best place on earth to like do that sort of thing. Like even
Yes.
in Chicago, there's like definitely some. I would think there's some grocers that you could work with in doing that, but they're still
Yeah.
a little more spread out. And then most are like the big banner type
Yeah.
stores. You know what I mean? Are you are
Yeah.
you in a lot of like what types of stores are you in right now? Are you in a lot more of like the
Bigger and bigger. Started
yeah.
off with single store, mom and pop stores. And now we are in several different chains. They are
Okay.
local chains. So I'm not talking about a Whole Foods or a Sprouts quite yet. But local chains like West Side Market, Lincoln Market. So now I've started with the very, very small stores and worked my way up to the larger retailers in New York City.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. New York's such a great spot for that. I know when
Because I mean, I think that there is a little bit of a downside. There are clearly people doing the same thing, and so what that means is that there are 50 brands on the shelf.
oh,
Whereas if you go to some of the stores in Chicago or outside of Chicago, my guess is there's half of that on the shelf. So there's a lot of competition. It's a lot harder to stay on the shelf in New York City.
I
Um,
bet. Yeah.
so there is that too, but overall, I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, it's cool that you're still going there, putting it on yourself. Is it just you? Are you a one-person team right now, or do you have any other people on your team?
In the process of hiring a full-time sales executive. So that person will be joining early next year. I have brand ambassadors that I work with to
Nice.
help me with sample drop-offs, to help me with demos a little bit here and there. And then I have some consultants that I've worked with that I outsource that have helped me with logistics, formula development, graphic designer that I've worked with, same person. So I do a lot of outsourcing. I think a
Yeah.
lot of
Okay.
startups do, but we'll finally be taking on that full-time salesperson next year.
Awesome. That's exciting. It's a big step.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. The stores are ready for us, but we need to be ready for them.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Um, has this year, I mean, obviously, like you were saying at the beginning, I mean, this year has been all about just getting the brand on shelf, staying on shelf during COVID. Um, Have you guys, and I don't know how this works with frozen and ice cream specifically, but do you have an e-commerce presence, or has that been something you guys have been thinking about just with COVID? And honestly, how does that work? Because like an Amazon or like your own website, I'd be curious how you ship ice cream.
It's tough. It's not easy, which is why we don't have e-commerce yet, but we will in about 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
That's a very timely question because we're in the
Okay.
process of getting set up right now. We are going to be beginning by just doing it through our website. And it's taken so long for us to do this because I feel like you need to get people to go and order ice cream. They really have to know and love your brand. And when you're just starting a business, nobody knows who you are. So nobody's going to be going to Yum Actually and spending $100 to get ice cream shipped to them across the country,
Right.
without us having a strong brand presence yet. I think that there are certain companies that do it really well, like Jenny's Ice Cream, Grater's Ice Cream. There are a lot of different ice cream businesses that have been around a while that have really established a strong following and strong brand recognition. They can command $100, but when you're starting out, you're less likely to have people go online and pay the extremely high shipping costs of getting ice cream sent to them unless they really know who you are. So it was never a priority. And retail is going to continue to be our priority, but e-commerce, we are getting a lot of requests finally for our ice cream shipped to people. So we are going to be getting that set up through our website. In terms of a third party, like an Amazon, you've got to be a bit bigger to get into most third party platforms. So we're going to be starting for our website.
Yeah. I feel like Amazon's trying to move to getting a lot of the brands that are in Whole Foods through Amazon Fresh, especially for like frozen or fresh
Correct.
foods. So that would probably be, I'm sure, what they're trying to leverage. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's exciting. I mean, it sounds like you guys have had a great year. I know, obviously, you were saying like once COVID goes away, who knows? It could be like the floodgates open up and you could have even more than you're ready for. Are you guys at a stage with your co-man now where you could handle getting like a banner national type account, or would you need?
Oh, yes.
I think it's interesting to always hear someone early on, like at your age, like a stage in the game of just like, how does that work for like scaling production on the back end as you like gain more distribution? How do you like balance that?
Yeah, we are absolutely ready from a production manufacturing point of view. We do have to get better logistics. I can't be delivering to stores nationally. So once we have logistics nailed down, we're absolutely ready. Like I said, production is no problem at all. I've said this a couple of times, though. I do think it is really important to establish some brand recognition before really going big. So I've spent a lot of time this year marketing, and I've spent a lot of time doing everything I can to create brand recognition. I think that's very important to do, but we are ready once we get the distributor in place. We would be ready, but again, recognition first, in my opinion.
No, that makes total sense. What is your guys' thoughts on 2021? What, like, it sounds like you're trying to get brand recognition, you're trying to grow doors and keep doors, which I thought it's actually a really important point that I don't think we've talked about on here very much. What is like the game plan for 2021 and what you guys are trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so hiring a salesperson so that can take some of the burden off of me and I can focus on scaling the business in other ways. We're going to have e-commerce set up in the next couple of weeks. So through our website, people will be able to finally get our ice cream, and then working with a local distributor and then also a larger full service distributor. So
Gotcha.
certainly a lot planned for this year.
Yeah, definitely.
In it to that next step, no more carrying ice cream cases on my head into stores. We're going to be moving away from that a little bit finally.
I'm sure that's you got to take pictures of that. I always
Yep, I've got pictures.
That's good. I was always impressed. One of the first days back, I joined RX in 2017, but one of the first meetings as a new employee was with Peter, and Peter would come in, the guy who started RX Bar, and he had like a really cool PowerPoint of just like timeline of the brand, and it was like back when him and Jared were like in his parents' kitchen making the first couple RX bars to, first co-man, it was just really cool. It's cool to like, I'm sure if you capture that while things are moving so fast, you can look back on and see all the different things you went through.
It really is. I've been adamant to do as much as possible myself to learn the business and learn about my company in and out. Like I have done everything. I've started by doing everything myself, even legal. I don't have any background, accounting, zero accounting background, but I have started by doing everything myself just to learn as much as possible. And I think it's, I think it's so important for a founder. really get involved in as much areas as possible in the beginning.
No, that makes sense. Obviously this whole podcast is more towards finance. One question I had, and I've talked to a few founders about this, is like, how quickly did you go from, I mean, I'm sure at first it's like, you got to develop a product, you got to figure out how to like scale it, package it, get it onto a shelf. How
Mm-hmm.
quickly do you start looking at like your margins and profitability and pricing? I'm always curious, like how early in the process, like you started thinking about those things, or is it right away?
Right away.
Yeah.
Like I had my spreadsheet for formula development to my right, and then I had my spreadsheet for my margins and my cost to my left. That was one of the things I did from day one, and I'm so glad I did it. I'm not really a finance person myself, and this is one of the best decisions I've made for my business was figuring out the margins right away and
Okay.
not have
Yeah.
a huge surprise down the road, because everything starts to add up. There's so many more costs than you ever consider in the beginning.
Right.
And I think it's really important to lay down all the costs in the very beginning and build that into your pricing, build that
Right.
into your margins, and leave yourself as hefty as a margin of as possible.
Yeah. 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 And how did you decide? Because you're focused on New York right now. How did you decide at like where you wanted to be priced on shelf? Was there a lot of effort and was it more science or more art to figure out where you wanted to be?
Both. The scientific part would be my cost model that I built out with all the
Okay.
margins, and then the other one would be going around and looking at different competitors. I consider it, this is a healthier product. It is a more premium ice cream product. So I was looking at doing some getting competitive intel and seeing what other similar type brands, premium brands, are charging.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of both an art and a science.
Got it. Nope. Totally makes sense. Love that. Have you, as a business, this is I think an important one to talk about is like bootstrapping versus raising money for, especially in the food CPG world, because I think there's a lot of different ways to do it. And from all the founders I've talked to, it that doesn't ever seem like there's a right or wrong way. There's just different ways. What are your thoughts on that as far as like starting Yum Actually, and then have you bootstrapped it? Have you tried to go raise money early on, or do you have thoughts or plans for any of that?
Yeah, so we've been fully bootstrapped from the beginning, relying some on obviously personal funds, personal loans, and
Yeah.
then also sales. And we will be bootstrapped probably until the end of next year. I think that when we get into a full service distributor that can take us outside of our backyard,
Yeah.
so that's when it's time to raise money from
Okay.
outside sources and get some larger distribution and ramp up the marketing efforts.
Gotcha. Love
I'm
it.
still in my own, social media page, for example. Would love to kind of take that a step up later
Okay.
later in the year, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
up for now.
And how do you think about raising money versus building a team? Or do those go hand in hand sometimes? That's a question I've gotten a few times. Is like, how are founders thinking about, the future years of, when do I go raise money versus when do I need to add a head count to help that way? Have you thought about that? I know it's early on, but just
Yeah, well,
curious.
like I said, we are going to be adding our first full-time employee
Right.
next year. So we're doing that before raising money. My guess, and this could obviously change. You have to be very nimble and be willing to know that things change frequently. But I think that as we build out a team beyond that, that's going to be coming after we raise money, as we build on a full-time team.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Do you guys ever, I know obviously you're focused on your niche right now and focused on kids better for you premium ice cream products. Do you have an envision of Yum actually getting into any other categories or other niches? Or do you have other ideas for this kids category? I was curious on what's your like 1, 3, 5 year thoughts, being the CEO right now. Where's your head sit?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the marketing to kids, the kids market. Our name is Yum Actually. I specifically have left it at Yum Actually and not Yum Actually ice cream or Yum Actually something that has to do with ice cream. I've left it at Yum Actually, and our tagline, the yummiest way to eat fruits and veggies.
Oh,
That across multiple categories, and that's why I've specifically done that for a reason. I would say we would go I certainly have some ideas for other segments of the market to get into within kids products and within this eating fruits and veggies, more fruits and veggies, turning fruits and veggies into other indulgent food for kids. I
Yeah,
see it remaining in that in that category, but trying to get through the ice cream part of that first.
definitely.
We did the most difficult category first.
Yeah, you know what they say, eat the frog,
Sure.
as far as like getting things done, right? There you go.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Exactly.
I think it's really interesting. You know, me and my wife don't have kids yet, but I remember being a kid and not wanting to eat veggies, and it's so interesting to think like, you know, there could be alternatives like Yum actually, as far as like getting those fruits and veggies that the kids don't want to eat.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. So I mean, awesome work there.
Really, it's worth pointing out, we don't really, there's a lot of hidden veggie type of products out there. We don't hide the fruits or veggies. The fruit or veggie is front and center in our ice cream. It is the main ingredient. And if anything, it's going to turn your kid on to the fruit or the veggie. My kid
Oh,
started sweet potatoes and mangoes after eating my ice cream. It was a little bit of like, oh, sweet potatoes are delicious. They're not evil. And so
oh, cool. That's
starts
cool.
eating fresh sweet potatoes and fresh mangoes. So yeah, thank you for saying
Yeah,
that.
no, that's awesome. I mean, I hadn't thought about it like that. That's
Yeah,
true. Like instead of hiding it and mask it and trying to like have it taste like something else,
no,
you're
we
almost
used
just enhancing
to
it.
hide
Yeah.
it.
No, that totally makes sense. That's awesome. Um, what is your like what is your if you know, you look at the next couple of years, is there like a certain retailer or point of distribution that would be like your North Star, your like biggest focus at this point?
There's a few of them. I've never been one of those people that has been just targeting a certain retailer since day one. I just feel like you're gonna be disappointed if you're just focused on one or two retailers. You're
Sure.
gonna you're just gonna learn that they're not as perfect. It's not as perfect of an arrangement or a partnership as you think it would be in the beginning. So I'm just where our product is a good fit, basically. And it's interesting to learn more and more about these retailers the more that time goes on. There were some retailers in the beginning very early on that I really wanted to be in, and a couple of them I got into, and it was just not a good fit for various reasons.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think that rather than just focusing on one or two retail accounts that we want to be into, I kind of, when the time comes, see if it's a good qualify them, see if it's a good fit for us, make sure that I know that we'll do well there, and then
Right.
go from there.
No, that makes sense. That totally makes sense.
I
This
have
is
distributors I'd like to work with.
right. Okay. Yeah, that makes oh, that's a good
I
point.
have distributors I know would be a good fit for us, and I'm targeting. But in terms of the retailers, yeah,
Less worried at this point.
yeah, yeah,
That
hmm
makes sense.
yeah,
You know, one thing I haven't, you know, being at RX, we have like kids bars. We've launched like two
yeah.
different versions of them. Um, and I'm always curious, just, you know, as far as, you know, what you've learned, along the way. This is a question that I don't know if we've even really figured out yet, but it's like, obviously your product is honed in, for kids to enjoy.
Mhm.
And now with COVID, with a lot of kids being on the computer and maybe even on like phones, tablets more than they were before, when you think about marketing, is marketing for like a kids type product still more focused on the parents and trying to tell the parents like this is a better option for you? Or is it also to kids and hoping that the kids tell the parents? I'm a finance person, so I'm not as
Yeah.
close to like the marketing side, but I'm always curious how brands think about that.
We're focused mostly on the parent, marketing to the parent, because um, if you were to put our ice cream in front of a kid versus a big chocolate bar with a bunch of sprinkles everywhere that had superheroes on it, they would probably choose just to be honest, they would probably choose that over this, bright orange mango ice cream.
Yes, true.
So
Okay.
now with that said, once they try it, they love it. It's a kind of a win-win for both. The parents want them to eat it, and then the kids love it after they try it. But I think it's important it needs to resonate with the parents. The kids don't care about the kids don't look at the sugar content. The parents do, because the kids are going to be the ones waking the parents up in the middle of the night when they've had too much sugar. Um,
Yeah.
but I think
Okay.
with my product, it really depends. There are some products on the market where, the popsicles, the frozen popsicles or superhero popsicles, those are like, they want the kids to be grabbing those off the shelf. you have to kind of know who you're marketing to. But we understand that this is a healthier product. We have less sugar. We have it's a good source of fruits and vitamins and nutrients. Kids don't really care about that. So we specifically market mostly to the parent because of that. Now there are some ideas that we have in our pipeline to make it so that the kid will grab it off the shelf because they see something on it or something that's promised inside the box. Not going to
Oh
say
yeah,
too,
right.
but so that is important. But we know which lane we kind of need to be into in terms of marketing it because it is a healthier product.
Right. Okay. Got it. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think it's so interesting because it's just, depending on if you're pitching it to an adult or a child, just the marketing could be totally different.
Yeah, no, the kids do have to like it. Parents will not buy again. If their kid's not eating it and it's sitting in their freezer, then that's not going anywhere. So we know that we do have to make it something that they enjoy eating. And then also you do need to do a little something extra to get those kids to keep asking for it.
Right.
Sometimes you put a little something in there. You need to have, some sort of a mascot or something on your packaging that really stands out. And we're aware of that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So as a CEO, as a founder, I like to ask every founder that comes on this question. I know obviously starting a business, trying to scale a business, there's got to be a million different things on top of being a mom, a wife. There's a million different things moving around. How do you keep track of everything? How do you, plan your goals? Is it pen and paper? Is it an app? Is it something in between? Always love to ask, how do you manage your life on a, goal basis, daily task basis type of thing?
I am such a list person. I still do a bit of the paper. I don't know why this isn't showing up on here, but I love the pen and paper.
Okay.
However, I keep everything stored in my computer too. Once you have a business, you kind of got to take it up to the next level, go beyond that. So it's interesting you say that. I am a big fan of lists and goals. And I have my 3-month goals, my 6-month goals, and my yearly goals. And I really hold myself to those. I also do daily goals before I go to bed. I make a list of my goals for the next day. So I have found that it is something that is so simple, so elementary. And I have found that has kept me going every single day. And that has gotten me to stick to, it's increased my sales, right? Because I hold myself to these goals. And if I tell myself I'm going to open up 3 new accounts, if I'm only at 2 accounts on Friday, I am getting that 3rd account because I put that on my weekly or monthly list. So I'm a list.
Okay.
I'm a list, and I'm very goal oriented.
That makes sense. And so the night before is when you plan the following day.
Yeah. And then I also, like I said, I also do the quarterly ones and semi-annual and annual ones too.
Wow, that's really cool.
I was never that organized of a person before starting a business, but I find that you absolutely have to. If you're not an organized person, you have to change your ways.
Yeah.
Business, and so.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I've learned that I used to not be a goal person at all, and then I realized that I was always waking up and you're handling all the things that are coming to you as emergencies. You're handling everyone else's goals, right? They're coming. Exactly. They need you to get those things done versus.
Exactly. You have to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
And it's a new feeling when you start a business. It's a new feeling. But I take myself seriously. So
there we go. But pen and paper, I still think that's honestly, I think most people that I've asked that question to, that's still the go-to over,
I'm not the only.
Yeah. Over apps, anything else technology wise, pen and paper seems to be the best.
Yeah.
What would be, if you had to gift or share, a favorite book? I also say, if you don't have a book, if you're not a reader, like a podcast, a video, something that's like a source of knowledge, what would you suggest people who are listening right now?
Oh boy,
check out?
I have them. I almost have to. I'm tempted to pick up my phone and go through my Kindle because I have so many books. I have so many books on there. So, in terms of podcasts, how I built this is an obvious one. Food business, retail ready with Ali Ball is another podcast I like. Food marketing is another podcast I listen to. I took a boot camp called Hudson Food Business Boot Camp in New Jersey City. very helpful. Um, Specialty Food Association, I'm a member. That was something I joined from day one. I became a member, and I've taken advantage of all the educational courses that they offer. I also took a boot camp there before I went to market. It was at the Specialty Food Show. They offer a boot camp for basically anybody can join that.
Oh, cool.
And I mean, you have to pay a fee for it. That was really helpful. And then there are a number of books that I've read too. And if you want me to pull them up on my phone, I'm happy to do that. But
No, that's
I
great. That's great.
big,
Does any one book stand out to you as one that you've just like?
it's funny. There's a book called it I don't know how much of the book is actually sold. It's called Inspired, and I don't remember that the author's first name is Vic, and I don't remember his last name.
Okay.
And it's about his journey starting launching a food business. It was a drink. It was a starfruit drink that he launched. I started reading that just when I was in the idea phase, before I had a name, before I had a trademark, before I had a logo, before I had flavors nailed down. I started reading that, and I found that book really kept me going in the very, very early days.
Okay.
So that one stands out the most. And again, it's called Inspired, and then the author's name is Vic. And
Oh, cool. Okay.
not a
We can
book
add it
that's
to the show notes.
widely available. I know it's on Amazon. I know I have it on my Kindle, but that one really stands out because it was like the first book I read that was educating me on the process.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. That's great. I'll add that to the show notes. Always love asking that.
Yeah, and any more I can send you as a follow-up after this. I'm kind of blanking on some of them though.
Okay.
But
Yeah, no, that's great. That's fine. That sounds good. What is like I know you're kind of like at the scaling stage right now. If anyone listening to this is, thinking about starting a food business or wants to become, get into this general space of food and CPG, do you have any like one major piece of advice that you've learned so far that you'd love to share with the listeners?
I'm gonna give two, if that's okay. So one,
100%.
to solve a problem / fill a gap on the market. As I said, think of my avocado ice cream ideal problem I was having. I was making batch after batch. It tasted delicious. Ultimately, I decided not to go with that because I wasn't filling a gap or solving a problem. I was just going to be another better for you ice cream on the market. I wasn't solving with I'm solving two problems. I'm getting kids to eat more fruits and veggies. And then I'm also creating this healthier dessert for kids in a very crowded, better for you frozen dessert category for adults. So mine's really the only one marketed to kids. And so that would be the first one. Make sure that, it's going to be, your barrier to entry is going to be so much lower when you can say, we're doing this, no one else is doing it, we're solving this problem. So don't be another Me Too product, fill a gap in the market, solve a problem. And then the second one would be put your product out there, just launch it. And obviously you do need to have certain things. You have to have it run in a lab. You have to get the nutritionals worked out. You have to have your packaging compliant before you go to market. So there are some things that you have to do before you actually go to market. But my advice is to get it out there and get in front of customers and start soliciting their feedback as soon as possible. And then that's how your product will that's how you will develop and make a successful product. It's not going to happen by sitting at home for 5 years trying to get everything to be perfect before you launch. Right. I think that it is important to launch with what I did last year, which was a prototype. Now, again, it was a little bit easier to be out in front of customers and buyers last fall than it is now because of COVID. But I think that it's really important to put something out on the market before it's perfect. Don't wait for it to be perfect, or you'll never go to market because your product will never be perfect.
Right. Yeah, that totally makes sense. 100%. Right. I think too many people do that and they spin their wheels and they never get the feedback.
Correct. I would still be doing that now. I mean, so I'm glad that I just finally went with it and went with a product that was, I don't want to call it half baked, but it was, it wasn't quite ready, but now it is.
Yeah, but then you get more feedback and then you can tweak it the right ways, right? To your point.
Correct. Like, what are customers actually going to buy it? What do they like about it? What don't they like about it? I've been able to tweak things based on their feedback.
Got it. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I guess, what are the best ways for people to follow Yum Actually, get involved with them at Yum Actually? And then obviously, like you mentioned, you guys will be launching a website, so I can link that in the show notes. But is there any other ways for now that people can get involved with the brand?
I would say most of my kind of marketing and keeping people up to speed about where we are, what stores we're um, in our benefits and our advantages is through Instagram. So I would say Instagram, following us on Instagram, it's just at Yum Actually is probably the best way. Also our website, because we are a new brand, it is super informative. You know, as we
Okay.
grow, there's going to be less of the FAQ.
Right.
Now it's just www.yumactually.com. You find out our difference, our advantage, our story, our flavors, the nutrition, all of that information's on the website. So those two sources.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Nicole, thank you so much. This was a blast. I appreciate you taking the time to
Thank
come
you
on.
for having me. This was a lot of fun, and I hope my background wasn't too
No, I think it was
distracting.
great. I think it's
It's really
awesome.
been distracting me. By the way, this was right after a delivery, so this product wasn't sitting there full for a month. This picture was taken immediately after a delivery.
It looks good though. I'm always,
Thanks.
I always think
Yeah.
it's really important as a brand to like figure out a way to like stand out like that. I mean, you can already tell like between the two other doors, yours definitely is
Yeah.
makes you stop and
Yeah,
stare and
and it's
read it.
waffles. That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's
It's
awesome.
actually really well on waffles, by the way. Just
Really? Okay.
yeah.
There you go. Good to know. Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I think for people who, live in New York, obviously you can check this out. If you're outside of New York, well, your website's launching soon. So this will
Yeah.
probably be up in a few days and then people can check it out after that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, Nicole, have a great day and thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
Cool. Any other follow-up information you want after this, just send me an email. I'll get you whatever
Awesome.
you need. Okay.
Okay. Well, sounds
Thank
great.
you.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Have a good one.